He enters the coffee shop like a storm that no one saw coming, yet everyone feels the moment he arrives. There is a rhythm to his presence, as if the world adjusts itself to make space for him. The sharp cut of his designer jacket, the effortless stubble framing his jaw, and that half-smile casual, almost careless, but deliberate enough to ignite a chain reaction of attention. Heads turn before the mind has time to remind itself not to look. Within minutes, he has the barista leaning closer, laughing in a tone reserved for people she wants to remember, 2 women subtly giving him their numbers, and 3 more sitting in silence wondering what invisible force just swept through the room and unsettled their carefully constructed boundaries. You watch, and your chest tightens with a strange blend of admiration, envy, and confusion. How does he do it? How does he make what feels like climbing a mountain look as easy as tying his shoes? You replay the scene in your head, trying to deconstruct the trick. Maybe it's his words, maybe it's his timing, maybe it's the way he moves as if rejection doesn't exist in his universe. Whatever it is, it seems untouchable, almost supernatural. He reads women like they are open books while you still stumble at the first page. He weaves through layers of subtlety with the precision of a surgeon, while you're left wondering if her smile means interest or just politeness. It looks like magic. But here's the uncomfortable truth most men don't want to hear. It isn't magic. It isn't talent, either. What you're seeing is the end result of a long, invisible battle. That man who looks like he was born with the answers didn't start this way. In fact, he probably began as the opposite, the man who loved too quickly, trusted too deeply, and gave away too much of himself in the name of romance. What you're witnessing isn't a gift. It's scar tissue that learned how to dance. And that's the part nobody talks about. The men who seem to understand women the best, who glide through conversations and ignite desire without effort, are often the same men who carry the heaviest scars beneath their confidence. They didn't study charm in books. They didn't stumble into charisma by luck. They were forced into it. They were driven to master human psychology not out of curiosity, but out of necessity. Pain pushed them into precision. Rejection carved patterns into their minds until they learned what to avoid. Heartbreak sharpened their instincts until misreading signals became impossible. And the smoothness you see, the illusion of effortless grace, is nothing more than thousands of repetitions, countless failures, endless corrections, until skill became muscle memory. What looks like natural ability is in truth the hardest education of all, one learned not in classrooms but in the battlefield of broken trust. Every man who carries this air of mastery has his story. I call it the story of the romantic refugee. Because no man begins with the armor of indifference or the sharpness of perception. He begins soft, idealistic, believing in fairy tales because culture told him that was enough. He believed in soulmates. He believed that if he treated women with kindness, loyalty, and devotion, they would see his sincerity and reward it with love. He thought flowers on the first date would impress her, that remembering the smallest details would make him unforgettable, that pouring his heart into grand gestures would prove his worthiness. He thought love was a moral equation. Be good, and good love will come to you. But real life punishes idealists. The women he adored chose men who treated them with indifference. The girls he placed on pedestals climbed down to be with men who barely seemed to notice them. The relationships into which he poured his entire soul ended not with loyalty, but with betrayal replaced by someone colder, someone less invested, someone who seemed to care far less than he did. Slowly, brutally, he learned the world doesn't work the way he was told. And that discovery tears a man apart from the inside, because it isn't just rejection, it's the collapse of an entire belief system. This is where the refugee story begins. The idealist finds himself stranded in a reality that doesn't match the world he was promised. Psychologists call it cognitive dissonance, the torment of believing in something that life repeatedly proves false. Does he continue believing in love as the movies and books described it, or does he abandon those beliefs entirely and search for what actually works? That is not an easy decision, because one path keeps him loyal to his ideals but guarantees more heartbreak, while the other feels like betrayal of everything he thought was sacred. But eventually, something forces his hand. Something so devastating it leaves no room for fantasy. I call it the final betrayal. It's the moment that shatters him completely, the heartbreak that breaks through even his most stubborn illusions. Maybe it's the girlfriend who leaves him for his best friend. Maybe it's the fiancée who cheats with a man who treats her poorly. Maybe it's the woman who looks him in the eyes and says he's too nice before running off with someone who barely gives her respect at all. Whatever form it takes, it crushes his old identity beyond repair. The final betrayal burns away everything he thought he knew about women and about love, leaving him with only one choice: either collapse under the weight of his pain or rebuild himself into something stronger, sharper, and far less naive. And so the refugee is born not a player, not a manipulator, but a man forced to abandon his homeland of romantic fantasy and set out into the foreign land of reality. He carries no map, only wounds. But it is those wounds that will eventually teach him more than any book, any advice, or any culture's fairy tales ever could. The man you saw walk into that coffee shop, smooth as silk, seemingly untouchable, he is the final product of that journey. The effortless charm is nothing more than the ashes of a broken boy who once believed too much. His confidence is stitched together from scars. His skill is born from survival, and that is why he can read a woman's emotions in seconds, because he once paid the price for not seeing them soon enough. After the breaking point, after the betrayal that cut so deep it forced him to abandon the fairy tale, something inside him shifts permanently. He no longer approaches love as a blind believer but as a strategist. The heart that once rushed forward without question now becomes a laboratory of sorts. A place where every interaction is dissected, studied, and understood. Instead of chasing affection blindly, he begins to observe with cold precision. Each smile, each hesitation, each flicker of body language becomes data. He starts asking questions he never asked before. What is it that truly draws women in? Why do they chase mystery while turning away from complete openness? Why does absence spark more longing than constant presence? Slowly, painfully, he begins to unravel truths about attraction that no one ever taught him. Truths that he paid for in heartbreak. He notices that the things he was told would make him desirable, the grand gestures, the constant availability, the endless reassurance, were the very things that suffocated attraction. He realizes that teasing playfully generates more spark than endless compliments, that listening deeply carries more weight than trying to impress with achievements, that maintaining a touch of distance, a sense of self outside of her, creates far more magnetism than giving her every ounce of his time. He sees that desire lives not in certainty, but in the tension between closeness and distance, between the known and the unknown. This is the beginning of what could be called strategic empathy, the ability to read what a woman feels without losing himself in it, the ability to connect without collapsing, to care without clinging. Paradoxically, the less he chases, the more women lean in. The less he seeks validation, the more validation comes to him unasked. What once looked like magic in other men, he now sees as method, sharpened by scars, refined through countless lessons that burned but never killed him. And this is where something even more profound begins to form. The same wounds that nearly destroyed him slowly harden into scar tissue, and that scar tissue becomes the armor he wears. Confidence does not arrive as a gift, it is constructed from pain. He is no longer willing to stake his identity on one woman's approval, because he has already survived the loss of it. He no longer believes love is guaranteed, but because he knows this, he no longer panics when it fades or shifts. He accepts attraction as something unpredictable, fleeting, often irrational, and this acceptance liberates him from the desperate need to control it. He does not chase because he has learned chasing is useless. He does not beg because he has learned begging is beneath him. He simply calibrates, adjusts, reads the signals, and responds accordingly. What once left him powerless now leaves him precise. This is defensive mastery, born not from theory but from survival. He became smooth in conversation because he still remembers the sting of awkward silences that killed moments before they began. He became skilled at reading interest because misreading it once left him humiliated. He learned to stand tall and project calm because he remembers how weakness invited rejection. Every ability that seems natural is in fact sharpened by necessity, the way a man who fell into a raging sea learns to swim harder, faster, and longer than the one who practiced only in the safety of a pool. What others call charm is simply resilience turned outward, a set of instincts honed by countless failures until failure no longer defines him. The irony is that people on the outside mistake this for talent, as though he was simply born this way, as though the confidence was gifted. They do not see the late nights replaying every mistake, the endless questioning of his own worth, the hollow feeling of being discarded again and again until numbness set in. They only see the man who can now walk into a room and command attention without effort. What they fail to realize is that the effort was immense, just invisible, buried in scars. And this is the paradox. His strength is not the absence of wounds, but the mastery of them. His confidence is not freedom from pain, but fluency in navigating it, and this fluency makes him dangerous in the best way, unshakable, unreadable, and unafraid.